Oral questions, question oral. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
C'est la responsabilité.
It is the Prime Minister's personal responsibility to invite heads of state to the House of Commons. It was the Prime Minister's responsibility when President Zelenskyy was invited here. The government has its security agencies, diplomats, and intelligence agencies. They could and should have checked the list of all those who were present and recognized during the visit. Will the Prime Minister finally come out of hiding and take personal responsibility for the embarrassment and monumental shame caused on the global stage by him, the Right Honourable Prime Minister? Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all those in this House, I would like to apologize sincerely for what happened on Friday and for the situation that President Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian delegation were placed in. For all those who were present, the fact that we paid tribute to that individual without knowing who he was a terrible error and a violation of the memory of those who cruelly suffered at the hands of the Nazi regime.
Mr. Speaker, it was the personal responsibility of the Prime Minister to invite President Zelenskyy to the floor of this House of Commons. It was his personal responsibility to make sure it was a diplomatic success. It was his personal responsibility to continue to lead the government that has the security, intelligence, and diplomatic agencies that could have and should have vetted all individuals who were present and recognized. Yet this Prime Minister allowed for a monumental, unprecedented, and global shame to unfold in this chamber. Will he take personal responsibility for this shame and personally apologize on behalf of himself?
Right. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of all of us in this House, I would like to present unreserved apologies for what took place on Friday and to President Zelenskyy and the Ukrainian delegation for the position they were put in. For all of us who were present to have unknowingly recognized this individual was a terrible mistake and a violation of the memory of those who suffered grievously at the hands of the Nazi regime.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Did the Prime Minister's national security, intelligence, or diplomatic officials vet the names of the people that the Prime Minister allowed within mere feet of President Zelenskyy?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the privilege and responsibilities and rights of parliamentarians are sacrosanct, and that the Leader of the Opposition would be suggesting that any visitor to this House should be vetted by the government of the day is actually a grievous attack on the rights and privileges of parliamentarians. However, if the Leader of the Opposition or the Speaker or anyone wants our intelligence agencies to vet any of their guests, we would be more than happy to do that in respect of parliamentary rights.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
So the Prime Minister has just said that he allowed the President of a war-torn country, who is perhaps the biggest target of false propaganda and of potential assassinations, to be surrounded by hundreds of people who had not been vetted for their security background, their potential risks that they present, or in this case, the massive diplomatic disasters that they could have brought to that event. Is he really saying that he did absolutely nothing to protect the Ukrainian president from all of those many risks?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the facts are well known here. The Speaker issued the invitation, delivered the recognition, and has taken full responsibility. The Leader of the Opposition knows that not one parliamentarian was aware, but the truth does not matter to this Leader of the Opposition. He distorts, misleads, aims to confuse, all for partisan gain. It's all he knows how to do.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, again, he deflects blame and responsibility for his personal failings. It is the duty of the Prime Minister to protect our diplomatic reputation. It was therefore his duty to ensure that his diplomatic, intelligence, and security forces ensured there was no one who could potentially present a danger either to the reputation or to the physical safety of the people present at such a massive international event. Right. But today, he said he did none of those things, and instead, after he found out about it, he hid in his cottage for 3 days. Is that what it means to take responsibility for this Prime Minister?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we all know how many years the Leader of the Opposition has served in this House, and we can surely remember all the times he has stood up to defend the honour, the rights, the privileges of parliamentarians. And yet now, in order to make partisan attacks, he is proposing that the government of the day have the ability to vet and oversee the rights of parliamentarians and indeed of the Speaker to include people in this House, to invite them into this House. I know that the Leader of the Opposition used to have more respect for Parliament than that, but he's busy making a partisan attack.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Better late than never, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to congratulate the Prime Minister on his decision to accept the repeated demands to apologize to Parliament and beyond. And his definition of the Leader of the Official Opposition is not entirely wrong either. But I would like to ask the Prime Minister if he has personally called President Zelenskyy to present his and our apology, and whether he has a strategy to fight the Russians' horrible misinformation campaign, along with our allies. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Yes, Mr. Speaker, it is extremely unfortunate to see that this mistake made here in the House on Friday is being used by the Russians to continue sharing propaganda about why Ukraine is defending itself and why the Russians chose to invade Ukraine. Here in Canada, we will continue to firmly defend Ukraine and the principles of territorial integrity and sovereignty. We have shared that solidarity with the President of Ukraine on multiple occasions over the last few days. The Honourable Member, it is regrettable, Mr. Speaker, because that should have been the first thing that the Prime Minister did. And yet, from the Prime Minister's answer, I believe that he's saying that he did not call President Zelenskyy, who, other than the Jewish community, is the biggest victim of this error. Will he commit to calling President Zelenskyy? And will he commit to doing something to fight Russian propaganda, and that we do something urgently within and outside Canada to promote healing with the Jewish community? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we have sent several direct messages to the Ukrainian people and President Zelenskyy. At the same time, we will continue to stand strong against propaganda and misinformation stemming from Russia. Russia invaded its neighbor, its peaceful neighbor, and is attacking the rules-based international order. We will always stand on the side of the international order and on the side of Ukrainians.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has said that he was embarrassed about what happened in the chambers. But it's not about him. It's much more than that. Real damage has been done. Real damage to the Jewish community, real damage to the war effort in Ukraine, and real damage to Canada's reputation. Now, finally, after 3 days, the Prime Minister has finally said something. But he's got to take action. What is he going to do in concrete terms to clean up this mess?
Hear, hear. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I pointed out, this was deeply embarrassing, not just to all parliamentarians, but to Canada as well. We stand firmly with Ukraine. We will continue to stand against Russian aggression, against Russian propaganda, and we will continue to ensure with the military aid, with the humanitarian aid, with the financial aid, with the diplomatic aid we are engaged with around the world that will continue and indeed step up its efforts to counter Russian propaganda. We will continue to stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes, with whatever it takes. Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Il a pris 3 jours.
It took the Prime Minister 3 days to finally say something about what happened in this House. He has said that he is embarrassed, but this isn't about him. Real damage has been done. Now we need concrete action. What will the Prime Minister do to finally clean up this mess? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this was indeed deeply embarrassing for all parliamentarians and Canada. But we must continue to firmly stand with Ukraine. We must continue to fight Russian propaganda and its arrogance. And we must be firmly on the side of Ukraine. To date, we have invested nearly $9.5 billion in humanitarian and military assistance, diplomatic activities, economic assistance for Ukraine, and we will continue to be there to support Ukraine with everything that it needs for as long as it needs.